Shalom and good day all, this is Helium29 back again with another DC comic review, and in this DC review I'll be covering World's Finest by Mark Waid and Tom Taylor's Nightwing issue 103. So I'll now get things organised for the first one that I'll be covering. So the first one I'll be covering will be World's Finest. And starting off with first things first, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? Sure enough it does, to which I give it an 8 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the internal art, as well as what is happening story-wise. As we move into that next, and we'll look around the beginning, middle, and of course the end. So as we start to move towards the beginning of the story, we have Bruce Wayne or Batman and Superman talking about the scenario that's presently happening. I did happen to miss a couple of pages at the beginning there, but those early pages do happen to cover some locations, to which I'll cover that in the area of the story. And it's key racing. And of course we end up getting Dick Grayson on the scene. As we start to jump towards the middle of the story, they've gone out of their way and captured one of the known villains in the DC universe. And of course, there's a bit of a fight that takes place. And as we start to draw towards the end, we do get to catch up at basically a villain's hideout. And we know that this connects to the Metal Men, as we learn that there's a new villain in town. And yes, he uses kryptonite. And this is our new villain. We don't quite have his name yet, but definitely a threat to Superman. So for the internal art, I give it an 8 out of 10, as it's constantly being consistent throughout the series. Now it's time to jump into the area of the story. So first things first, did we get any comic references to any of the previous issues? No, we didn't. Though it wouldn't have hurt to have included the reference to the previous issue to just help keep the audience up to speed. Next is the area of time. Of course, it wasn't addressed. Next is the area of locations, and as I mentioned earlier, we do get quite a number of locations in the story, including at the beginning. We get Los Angeles, we also get the Batcave, the Fortress of Solitude. We do move to the Allegheny Mountains and also upstate New York. The cast of characters consisting of Metamorpho, Superman and Batman. We had Dick Grayson Robin. We had Ollie, or Green Arrow. Simon Stagg, of course. We had Dr. Dredd. And one more character. I think his name was called Anthony Iso. To which I give this story an 8 out of 10. Now it's time to move into Nightwing. So, as we start to move in the Nightwing, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? Sure enough it does, but you know what? I understand what Tom Taylor's doing here, but I'm going to have to give this a 6.5 out of 10. The reason why? There's a character that's still out there, that's still killing people in the DC universe by the name of Heartless. And Dick Grayson is continuing to let him get away with murder. And he hasn't even exposed his identity yet. Yet we, the audience, know who the identity of Heartless is. Yet Dick Grayson has turned into a dumb idiot because dumb Tom Taylor is writing this. It must be a strange gene in the Taylor family. So, let's move into the internal art, as I'll cover the internal art of both stories, but I'll giving it an overall rating, covering it as one story. And seeing that there is a backup story in this, I will give a story rating for the second story. So, as the book begins, we end up catching up with Neron and also many in the underworld in DC's Hell. And while some of these things are occurring, we catch up with Olivia, of course, and Batgirl and Starfire and Donna Troy. We, of course, advance a little bit further throughout the story with Cyborg and Beast Boy, along with Nightwing. And, of course, we get a bit of a big surprise from Dr. Polaris. But let's move into the next story as it deals with Bloodhaven and, of course... Oh, hold on. We haven't quite moved into the next story, but we are moving towards the end of this story. And, of course, Neron tempts him with some superpowers to be on his side. But we know things like this certainly have a cost. Then we finally move into the backstory as we get to have a look at the art there. And it is done by C.S. Pascat, who does the Fence series. Definitely check it out. We get to learn some of the backstory and events around the key character here. We don't quite get their name, but we do know that their mother was put at risk in the last issue. And let's remember that this is imposter John Kent, not the real John Kent. Until they move to, yes, it looks like we're going to have a black villain behind the scenes in the next issue. So, for the internal art, I gave a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the story. Rating for the first story. So for the first story, do we get any comic references? Sure enough, we do. We get Meanwhile and we get issue 98 as to where things begin to pick up in relation to this story. Also, we have time, being Meanwhile Next Day. Locations in this, which this will also take place in relation to mainly the key story, more so than the backstory. We had Hal, Iron Heights, Prison, Themyscira, well, what was believed to be Themyscira, but it turned out to be some form of illusion. We had the town hall at Bloodhaven, and in between, making up the characters of the stories of the first and the second. For the first and second story, we, of course, had Nightwing. We also have Raven, Beast Boy, Cyborg, Neron, Blaze. We had Donna Troy, Batgirl, Starfire, Olivia. We, of course, had Wally West. We had what was believed to be Wonder Woman but wasn't, but a disguise by Dr. Polaris, which was really well done. And last but not least, in the second issue the second story, we had the imposter John Kent. So for the overall story rating for the first issue, a 6.5 out of 10. But for the second one, a 6 out of 10. Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.